this meeting to order.
All right. So today is Tuesday, May 19th. That's the day after the governor's phasing plan was released. So we got a little bit of to talk to. We're going to go through it fairly quickly. I just want to welcome. I know we have a number of restaurant owners on the line as well that are here to, if you have any questions regarding their potential outdoor seating plans. So thank you guys for attending as well. But first, we want to just touch on the phasing plan, and I'm going to share screen once again to kind of get the highlights here. Let's see if I can. Everybody see my page okay? Let's see, let me get off the Zoom here. So first off, this is our website, our ongoing website that's kind of developing over the course of time. Karen and I worked hard this morning to get some of the new updated information on the page. So we have the mandatory compliance agreement. I'll touch on that shortly. Mandatory control plan. I'll touch on that shortly. And then the reopening Massachusetts phasing plan is already posted on the web. So these really just go to the state, though. The state has their reopening plan, the reopening, when can my business reopen, and it starts to detail some of the different things here. Primarily we're discussing with this group here, we're discussing mostly, assisting retailers as much as possible. We're fielding a number of questions regarding construction, regarding retail establishments, regarding pet grooming and spas and what have you. And so there's only so many things we can do with those, but we'll definitely work as they come through. This here, as you guys probably are familiar with at this point, this is the grand presentation for the phasing plan. Not a ton to it. The gist of it gets into the phasing down, I think, on page 14, 15. So we start talking about different schedules for different businesses. May 18th is the essential businesses, so everybody that's already been operating. Manufacturing, which some manufacturing entities have not been operating, so they are now added to the list. Construction, as I think I was mentioned just beforehand, here this was a local option that the governor had allowed for. Some places such as Boston did halt construction, but Bellingham reaffirmed that the ongoing construction is critical to our local economy. So we allowed for construction to move forward with proper procedures in place. So you see the big signs at the entry point, exactly explaining what the developer and the employees need to do to safely operate over the course of time during this the pandemic. He starts laying out phase I guess 2, or maybe it's 1A, I don't know, on May 25th, which discusses limited capacity for office space, lab space. It starts to open the doors for the pet grooming, the hair, the car washes. And again, even though it says retail curbside pickup on the 25th, that's something that he allowed for starting 2 weeks ago. So not sure exactly why it's listed on the 25th there. And then you see
technically that's the second part of phase 1.
Okay.
Phase 2 begins July 8th.
Our watch is on open.
Yep.
Every phase is supposed to be 3 weeks at a minimum.
Okay. So in June 1 then continues on for office space, and then it starts finally talking about retail, restaurants, lodging, etc. So June 1 is the soft date. They give themselves, the state, a little leeway in terms of kind of monitoring and seeing where things go. So I wouldn't say that June 1 is a hard date. We definitely just need to continue monitoring and working with our business community to inform them and discuss with them about opportunities moving forward. So it continues on and on with different types of uses, but really what I wanted to get into and get your guys' input on is how we as the town are going to proceed with when these businesses begin to operate or when they begin to be informed that they can operate. So post governor's announcement yesterday, we got flooded with a series of calls. I know Bruce Wilson got a number of calls. My office got a number of calls. I believe Larry over at Town Clerk got a number of calls and was trying to work our way through it. So we're working with staff to figure out exactly a proper channel for all those questions and concerns so that, we're speaking with one voice and we're speaking correctly. So we'll be working with that more so this afternoon just to nail that down. I think given that it's the Board of Health's, enforcement, then, it probably should start with them. I'm certainly happy to offer guidance and support if the board needs that support. But I just think we need to be speaking with one voice. So not only that, but once these businesses are open, the state has required some work on the business side. So this control plan that you see here, this is the template that the state has listed. This is also posted on our economic development website. So this is just kind of a checklist exactly. You go through, the business goes through, it lists all their information, the ways in which they're going to adhere to social distancing, proper hygiene protocols, staffing and operations, cleaning and disinfecting. So this is basically a checklist from the business side to say, yeah, we can operate safely, and we agree that we're doing all of these things. In addition, they also asked for this affidavit. So this basically, we've looked at the template that I just showed you, and a brief checklist and a signature here by the owner of the business. This is supposed to be displayed somewhere in your business so that, much like a liquor license or something like that, the Board of Health could peek in the door, see you have your affidavit, kind of glance around, say everyone's doing great, and move on. So it shouldn't be a huge lift for anyone that's trying to do the enforcement of it. This is an example of one of the checklists for the specific sectors. This is the construction section. And this morning we've been working, Tim Icardi has been working on getting this uploaded to our permitting software. So all of our online software that when you pull a permit, you'll also get this checklist. So the links will go directly to the contractors so that they automatically get this checklist, so we don't have to chase them down at any point. So this is just one of the checklists of the many sectors. So again, all of this falls back to, it's all in the States, but we're hoping that the businesses who are already going to our town website for different permits or contacts can just go to our economic development website and see it there.
So Jim, quick question.
Yep.
That affirmation letter, that just has to be posted in the business. It's not filed with the Board of Health or the state anywhere?
It's stated that it doesn't need to be filed, but it certainly can't hurt. But again, that's just more paperwork for Bruce and his group to manage and follow. I think it would be best suited just simply to be with the business. So
I'm surprised they made it that easy. That's why that was my question. So, okay. Thank you.
I'll follow up to confirm that, but that was the last I read, that they didn't need to submit anything to the state for that aspect of it.
Jim,
okay.
2 questions.
Yep.
What's the downside to having the authorization form in a file for one of our local businesses? That's the first question. I just think it's a copy and put it in. Secondly, how do you feel about the state copying most of your ideas?
Flattered. No, it's great. They're doing good to finally get at least something on paper that businesses can look at and say, okay, this is what I have to do. Because I think that's time and time again, talking to these businesses, they just want to know what they got to do in order to open. So I think it's beneficial that we finally have something on paper that's more than just from from us as a community. You know, there's so many communities in Massachusetts that are doing things, you know, slightly different. So it's good to get a standardized approach here. And to your point about a copy, it's true. We could certainly discuss that maybe more and see if it's beneficial to have something on file there. You know, I look at it as, well, if X business has it on file and the other one doesn't, then we might be chasing them down to get something on file, as opposed to, you know, how we operate. I'll use the example of zoning for enforcement purposes. We don't go looking around for sheds that might be 2 feet too close to the property line. But if we get a concern, a complaint that it's impacting someone, now we're going to go out and see what's going on and how we can improve that situation. So it's, you know, we're not chasing them down constantly, but if it's truly impacting someone, we'll go out there and deal with the situation.
Jim, it's Mark. Do you believe that that's like a duplication of efforts? If they have it posted in their place of business, it shouldn't that be enough? I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, you know, it could be. I mean, we do this for other things. You know, I'll use the example. I was going to get into it a little bit more, but maybe I get into it now with you know, our inspections that we did. I thought it was good for our inspection team to go out there. We were able to not only work with restaurant owners to discuss future plans, but we were able to inspect. Mark was able to go look at, you know, the hoods and everything to make sure the expiration dates are up to snuff. Fire extinguisher have their dates stamped appropriately. So, you know, it's fairly standard right now.
Okay.
All right. So that's what I have right now for the phasing plan. I know it's going to continue to evolve. I don't know if there's any other questions at this time. And I can certainly, you know, talk to you offline too if there's very specific questions you have.
Jim, I have a comment. That is, I'm assuming that the state guidelines now replace what we've done locally. In other words, people don't have to do 2 applications when they're applying now.
Right. So that checklist, yeah, I would say that checklist of what is necessary for businesses, it takes ours and then it starts getting into, you know, employee hygiene and stuff like that. So I think we could utilize the state's checklist as the go-to checklist now, and we could remove ours moving forward.
Okay, good. I just didn't want to make it more paperwork on this.
So, and actually kind of piggybacking on that. So, based on the state guidelines, a hair salon can open up on May 25th so long as they follow the protocols, post this affirmation, they're good to go. They don't need to submit a plan through the Economic Development Subcommittee that then makes a recommendation to the Board of Health.
That's right.
So now that we're this committee would be more taking on a role of like advisory, if anything else.
Exactly right. So there might be some businesses here and there that fall into the cracks, and that's kind of what we've been talking about this whole time, as trying not to leave a business behind. So I think we're going to be here for the very few that might be falling through the cracks or has significant ambiguity as to, you know, what category it might fall into, and we might be able to offer some guidance and advisory in an advisory role. In addition, continue to look at ways we can improve our regulatory framework, you know, much like we're doing with the restaurants. Perhaps there is some other creative aspects that we hear that we get wind of that we might be able to bring forward to other businesses.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bruce, anything from Board of Health?
No, it's just, it's a lot of paperwork that they've got, and anything we can do to keep it streamlined and get these people back to business. Because the problem right now is when we get these permitting calls, the people aren't unnecessarily computer literate, and we end up talking them through it all. So the simpler, the better.
All right. Mark, anything to add for the Emergency Local Action Committee?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, so let's get into the meat of it then. So the review review submitted businesses and restaurant plans. So we did have a couple of businesses that submitted over the last few days, and as Dan had just mentioned, you know, with the new phasing plan out, it may not be necessary for many of the businesses to submit because we now have some guidance as to when these businesses can open up. So I've actually talked to each one of the businesses that have submitted and informed them on when the guidance from the governor has allowed for them to open up. They were very, happy to hear that they have a date and what the guidance is. I provided them with the checklist. So from the non-restaurant side, I think we're in good shape at this time. From the restaurant side, over the past week, since our last meeting, we put out the marketing material. We've directly emailed many of the restaurants to try and get some insight and input from them, as well as try and get creative as to how they can expand their outdoor seating. So our inspection team, made up of myself, Bruce Wilson, Mark Poirier, and Tim McCarty, we jumped at scheduling these meetings. We met with many of them. We've met with PJ's, Devlin's, Palace Pizza, Beef Barn, Coachman's, Grumpy's, and we are to go out to Rock and Coal shortly. And each one of them has a very good creative response to the ability to expand the outdoor seating. Let's see. So you do have the sketches that were provided to you from the restaurants. I can go over any of the plans that or questions you may have from any individual restaurant. I know a couple of the restaurant owners are here today. If you want to speak with them directly, sure they'll be happy to jump at any of the questions. But really the discussion here today is once it's all said and done, if you guys are in support of, I would just request a vote to support the expanded outdoor seating at these restaurant locations. And I will then work with each individual restaurant to review their liquor license and review it with the Board of Selectmen in order to get that process moving if it's necessary.
Jim, can you bring the rest of the board up to date in the actions the planning board took last week?
Sure. So the planning board actually did a similar motion that they're in favor and of support of relief of any kind of parking obligations temporarily during this time in order to accommodate outdoor seating for the restaurants that it does it safely and responsibly. And we've done that by reviewing each one with our inspection team. So Mark had been out there reviewing fire lanes and indoor safety audit. Tim's looking at building code, but Bruce Wilson's looking at health regulations, making sure everything's in place. So I think we had a good team there.
Jim, the second question, and we're here to promote Bellingham businesses, and we're trying to get them to operate outside as soon as possible. I'm assuming this will be successful for a lot of the businesses. Without going through a lot of hoops, how can this made seasonal from April to October moving forward?
You mean an ongoing seasonal thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if it's successful this year, we have the winter that people aren't going to be eating outdoors. So we can definitely work with the property owners directly and the restaurant owners directly over the course of the winter if this is successful. I think I've heard clearly my directive from the selectmen and the planning board and others is, work with the businesses to help them as much as possible. So, certainly can talk with them about, potentially doing it further ongoing. We'd have to look at the permitting. I think we should keep
that in the back of our mind.
Certainly.
Hey, Jim, question for you, just for my own understanding. I did look at the plans and looks like the general school of thought is between 6 and 10 feet apart for each table, right?
Yep. Yes, exactly. Yeah, we're targeting 10 feet if possible.
Is there, how do restaurant owners determine the number other than, is it just a single row of 10 feet is what it looked like at each of them? Is there amount of space we give them and they figure out how many tables to fit? Like, what's the equation that they use?
Right. So the process we did was we went out there with the restaurants and we looked at a space that could safely accommodate outdoor seating. So we didn't back it in as they needed 40 seats, so let's find 40 seats here. We looked at it, we marked out areas in which fire trucks could get around the building safely. You have appropriate accommodations to access bathrooms safely, those sort of things. So we marked out that location first. And then we turned around and asked the restaurant owners to then look at it and provide a floor plan that will safely space these tables. So whatever number of tables you get from that, that's your number. But we're not going to try and fill the areas. And I've actually been extremely pleased that, with this, a restaurant could take advantage of the opportunity, but I think everyone's done a very careful and considerate job of not trying to over stuff the area with patrons. And I think that's for two reasons. One, for the safety of their own restaurant employees, but also I think people aren't simply going to come to the restaurants if it's overfilled in that area. So what we've seen is we requested try to get it as much as 10 feet apart if you can. The guidelines was obviously six feet from each individual person.
I guess the reason why I was asking is I was surprised at how few tables were available for each restaurant. And, I think it's great that they're going to have this opportunity. And I'm certainly happy that they have this as an option, but I guess I just was surprised that it doesn't seem like it's going to give these restaurants as much of a jump as we would hope it would be, but I leave that up to our friends that are on the call right now.
Yeah, and we've had that conversation with a few of the folks, and how I left it with many of them is that if it looks like there's a need for more, let's talk about what we can do for more. But I think honestly this is a good starting point. But perhaps we're mindful of that when any restaurants looking to modify their liquor licenses, that it's a little more general as opposed to specific 5 tables right here and that's that. Perhaps we're looking at a more general description.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
So Jim, getting into the liquor license thing. So after we approve the planned layouts that the inspection teams have already went out to do for the restaurants that we've been inspected, the one thing I want to point out is still getting the expansion of premises liquor license at this point is still kind of time consuming. It requires a 10-day notice for the hearing for abutters, and then the Board of Selectmen approve it, and it gets sent to the ABCC, which they say they're going to try to fast track as quickly as possible, but let's give that 5 days as well. So we're looking at almost a 3-week process currently. I've been working with our legislative team here to see if we can get some fast tracking up there on Beacon Hill, or if there's any other loopholes we might be able to take advantage of. But as of now, we're still looking at a potentially 3-week process. So my recommendation to these restaurant owners is, I know, Jim, you're going to be working with Hillary today, going over some of the specific restrictions on their liquor licenses. And then if you can kind of reach out when you're done and say, you guys are going to need to apply, and I would encourage that the restaurant owners request the hearing sooner than later. That way, once the governor does release for whatever phase of restaurant, guidelines he's going to do, you guys already have that liquor license approved and you're ready to hit the ground running. So if that's, like I said, Jim, when you go over those liquor licenses with Hillary, if it is something that they need to request, let's get them in for the Board of Selectmen and get it approved as soon as possible.
Absolutely, yeah, and so I'll be sitting down with Hillary later. She's already started to evaluate those for me, and we're gonna be in direct contact with each of the restaurants about what their specific process is going to be, and I'm hoping to get it before the governor says gives the green light to the restaurants for outdoor seating. So I'll work with you and the selectmen to establish a meeting date for that. But yeah, we'll do it as soon as possible.
Jim, I had a question. How many people per table with this outdoor seating?
So it would vary. It seems like most are targeting the four people per table, but I think what the guidance is coming out is it's a household. So an individual with a family of 6 or 7, if there's an ability to accommodate that safely, most of these, since it's outdoor seating, outdoor tables, outdoor chairs, can be moved around some. So that's why, the floor plans, they are to show, capacity, but also, we need to instill with the restaurants, and they're already mindful of it, that if these, a 2-top and a 4-top have to be combined because you have a 6-family household, we still need to have those corridors set up, those 8 feet, 9 feet, 10-foot corridors, so that not only patrons can get through without bumping into each other, but also all the employees can have a safe work environment.
Dan, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is it possible you could have an open-ended item on your future agendas for liquor licenses?
Yeah, we could probably do something like that.
And if you have 3 come in 1 week,
But the only problem.
we don't have to
only
wait to post it?
The only problem is they're public hearings, so
Oh,
they'd be restaurant specific. So with the right of butters would be able to show up and or anyone who wanted to speak on behalf of it. But what we'll do is we'll have an agenda item ready and willing for every meeting, and so if we get that request, we're ready to do it.
Okay. That could speed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so that's all I have in terms of the restaurants. If the committee has no other questions.
So Jim, can you read off the plans that you guys have already went out to the restaurants, and then I'll look for a motion to get this board to approve and recommend?
Sure. So we've been to PJ's, Devlin's, Pal's Pizza, Beef Barn, Coachman's, Grumpy's, and I'd ask that you include Rock and Coal in that as well. We haven't done our formal inspection yet, but we've received the floor plans, and I'm working with Mark and the team to get out there short in the next day or 2.
All right, and as a team, you collectively are okay with all those plans?
Yes.
All right. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the outdoor seating plans collectively for, want to read off the restaurants?
I didn't write them
You didn't write them
down,
down? All right.
Can I say so moved to what Jim just said?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
That sounds good.
We've got a first from Mrs. McNulty. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Bill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 0. All right, you guys start getting those requests for public hearings in.
Can you forward that list to me? Because the board meets tonight too. I just want to make sure we correspond with your list.
Of course. Yep. Not a problem at all. And to any of the restaurant owners on, I'll be in touch with you about specific plans on how to move forward from here.
Do we
Excellent.
want to hear from any of the restaurant owners?
Would anyone care to speak? Julia, see you over there? I don't know.
Sasha from Bellingham Palace Pizza.
Oh, there we go.
Hi. Quick question. How about if a tent is needed to be set up outside, depending on weather? Is there anything specific that would need to be done?
Yeah, so I don't know if Tim in the room with you guys?
Yep.
Okay, so Tim, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, depending on.
Yes, right there. It's the microphone.
So depending on the tent, it would require a permit and an inspection from fire department as well as building. So one permit and just an inspection for the safety of it, so it can withstand the wind load.
Okay.
For safety.
Fire rate.
And fire rate and the fire rating. Most tents are fire rated if you're renting them.
Okay.
So that would be a requirement for assembly use. It has to be fire rated.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And just to touch upon that, it depending on the size also, it may need emergency exit signs. It depends on if you have sides and egress issues. So it may require that also, but there are specifics dimensionally also. So you'll need to get it approved prior to placing the tent into service.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other restaurant owners care to speak or have any questions or comments?
I do have a little bit on the tent. So if we have them put in, you will allow us to put a couple of sides on the tent, or because we don't want to enclose the whole thing?
You're able to put sides on a tent. It just depends on the amount of open areas which would require exit signs. If 50% of it is open, then it wouldn't be required. But if you close it all in and you only have small doorway openings, it would just be subject to review, that's all. And we'll work with you on that.
Okay. My other issue is finding the tents to rent. I'm finding that people want $4,000 a month to rent them.
Oh, geez.
So I'm looking into buying it. So is there a different liability to owning it versus buying one?
Not necessarily. As long as it's a fire rated material, then it can be used for the assembly use that you're proposing.
All right, awesome. Okay.
If you were to rent it, the company that rents it to you would require insurance coverage. And if you were to purchase it, it can be rolled on to your current coverage.
All right.
The tent itself will have a UL sticker or or something sewn to it. California, right? So just make sure if you're purchasing a tent that it has that documentation attached to the tent.
Okay, and it's called a UL sticker?
UL, and it's California, usually a California rated tent or a document that's attached to that tent.
All right.
And at some point, let your broker know if you buy it, just to make sure you're covered.
Yeah.
Let him know it's added onto the policy.
Right.
Jim, are they allowed to have the tent completely closed in? Wouldn't that
Yeah.
defeat the purpose?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we'll have to examine the guidance that's going to come out for that. But yeah, Trish, I think you're right. The enclosure is we're then back to an indoor space.
Exactly.
So
Becomes an outbuilding.
so we'll look at the guidance that comes out for that specifically. I don't think a tent, like the roof of a tent, would be an issue, but
No.
yeah, the four walls might become an issue. But we'll work with each individual that is proposing it and see what the guidance says.
I just didn't want people to go out and buy a tent that had 4 sides that were completely closed in if they're not even able to use it, because I'm sure that will be more money.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Right. They roll up. All right. Any other comments? All right. Back to you, Jim.
So that's all I have for today. So we'll continue, the inspection team will continue to work with the restaurants. We have at least 3 more that are interested. So we'll be reporting back next Tuesday if that works for everybody, same time and place.
Same bat time.
I have one question. Have we heard from any national chains yet?
We did hear from one national chain that kind of had a general question. They were interested in it in the north side of town. So both we're not strictly to local businesses. This is just to help support local businesses. But if another entity wants to jump on board, the inspection team can go down there and hold them to the same standards.
All right. Anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
All right, I second that.
So moved. Okay.
All right. We have a first by Mrs. McNulty, second by Mrs. Leclerc. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 0. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Have a good
guys.
one.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.